Hi and welcome back to my channel. Continuing on with our princess dresses, this is number 3 and it happens to be Aurora from Sleeping Beauty. As I do with all my patterns, I use a mannequin and create my own pattern. As you can see with this pattern, it actually consists of 4 pieces for the bodice, 3 for the front and 1 for the back. I could not find the right color fabric I wanted for this, so I used this red cotton and I did overlay it with a wine color mesh. However, I do change that later on because I did not like the way the bodice actually came out. But the steps are exactly the same. Aurora has several seams down the front of her bodice that go into a triangle and meet at the middle. So I just went ahead and made a bodice that has several seam lines in it. And I use the same red material for the lining. For the outer layer of the bodice, I go ahead and take my panels and I lay them on this mesh and I cut another set out of this mesh. I do cut this mesh a little wider because it does like to slip and I want to make sure that the entire panels are covered. And then I will flat line this mesh on top of the red. And just like the other bodices, I go ahead and cut another set of the pattern out of interfacing. And then I iron it on to the lining material. For the lining, I go ahead and match all the seams and sew them together. With the lining all done, I go ahead and do exactly the same thing to the outer layer, and then I match them right side to right side and sew them together. And I only sew the top and the bottom. I leave the sides open, that way I can go ahead and flip it right sides out. And here, as you can see, I changed the fabric. And with the top and the bottom sewn, I go ahead and cut the points and clip the edges for the curves so it lays nice and flat. Aurora's dress is a little weird to me and I do not like it. It has several different color pinks, one darker pink for the bodice, a lighter pink for the skirt, an even lighter pink for the peplum and around the waist and the sleeves. To make the sleeves, I use this lighter pink material and I cut a long sleeve shape out of it. And then I also cut the shape out of the pink mesh material as well. And I flatline that together. I also end up changing this color of pink to an even lighter one, but the steps to make it are exactly the same. And with the mesh material flatline, I go ahead and fold it in half and sew up the seam. With the sleeves done, I go ahead and use my serger to finish off all the edging so they don't fray. And this way I can go ahead and attach it to the armholes of the bodice. And since this is an off-the-shoulder dress, I go ahead and attach some gold ribbon just so it stays up on my daughter. Now it's time for the white scarf thingy that goes on the top. I cut about a 6 to 8 inch size rectangle. I used this white chiffon and gathered it in the middle and then wrapped it around the bodice. I did attach one side of the chiffon to the bodice first, and then I folded it over the top of the bodice and I rolled it to cover the top edge of the bodice on the inside. And then I installed the separating zipper on the back. I actually did this before I attached the white chiffon completely. And like my other bodices with the zippers, I cut it down to the size I needed and then created a new stopper. With the zipper completely on, I go ahead and gather up the chiffon in the middle. I also gather it at the front of the arm and at the back where it meets the zipper. And to finish off the sleeves, I just go ahead and roll it up and hand stitch it down. For the skirt, I start out with the waistband, and I create the waistband out of this pink material. I fold over a 6-inch wide band in half and cut it out. And I use this pink cotton material and some pink chiffon to create the peplum. And I basically just made a circle skirt, but only about 8 inches wide. And then I drew my points onto one side of the peplum, I folded it in half, and then cut out the other side. And then I also overlaid it with this chiffon. For the main skirt, I used this hot pink material, cotton material, and then created a full circle skirt. I also did it with the hot pink mesh material as well. With the bottom of the skirt though, I do create the back part of it longer than I do the front part of it, because in the image of Aurora, she has a somewhat of a train on the skirt itself. And the skirt body will consist of 3 pieces. One that will cover the entire front, and then 2 back pieces, so that way I have a middle seam to add the closure on. For the waistband, I go ahead and cut a piece of the interfacing out to give it more stability. I also cut a piece of the interfacing out for the peplum. And since I'm not using food fusible interfacing on this, I go ahead and flatline that interfacing onto the waistband and the peplum. And then I go ahead and flatline the chiffon onto the peplum. For the waistband, I go ahead and fold it in half and iron it down. And then I fold up each edge about a ½ inch and iron that down as well. And then I attach the peplum to the waistband. Ignore that other piece of peplum because I end up not using it. One thing I forgot to record on is I do fold the edges up on the peplum part and stitch those down so they're hidden. For the skirt, I go ahead and sew up the 3 seams, and I do that for the hot pink mesh material as well. To finish the raw edges of the mesh material, I just light a candle and lightly melt the edges. And now I go ahead and attach the mesh material and the cotton material for the skirt to the waistband. For Aurora's skirt, if you look at images, it looks like they have seams coming off the point of the peplum. But then in other images, it just looks like gathers. So what I did is I gathered underneath each point some of the skirt to kind of simulate that effect. And once I had the skirt the way I liked it, I went ahead and I stitched down the peplum just on the mesh material. And once the peplum is completely attached to the skirt, I go ahead and fold the back side of the waistband down and stitch that down. And I also close up the back seams of the skirts. And to finish off the edges of the waistband, I go ahead and serge the raw edges, fold it under, and stitch them down. And then I add my hooks and eyes for the closures. To finish the edges of the hem, I go ahead and roll the hem up about 1 inch and iron it down, and then I stitch that down. And what's Princess Aurora without her crown? To create the crown, I used a Dollar Tree headband. This one happened to have fabric on it, so I had to cut the fabric off. And I also used craft foam. I went ahead and measured how long the headband was, and mine came about 14.5 inches. So I divided that in half, made a mark on the headband, and now I'm making my pattern. And since it's symmetrical, I only have to create one side. And I just trace that pattern piece onto my craft foam, flip it over, and create the other side. And then I just used hot glue to attach it to the headband. And I do go ahead and cut it down a little bit because it's kind of big. And then I seal the foam with some matte Mod Podge, let that fully dry. And then I do also go over it with a coat of wood glue because I want it to get more stability on it. And then I paint it with gold paint and seal it again with Mod Podge Glossy. And here is the final dress. There was a lot of things that I do not like about this dress, this design, the color scheme, but the little princess likes it. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share it, and I'll see you next week. Bye!